Every action begins twice, first in the mind, then in reality. Before a goal is achieved, it exists as an idea. Before a habit is formed, it exists as a decision. Before a life changes, a different way of thinking appears. That is why the quality of your thoughts matters so much. They influence what you notice, what you believe, what you attempt, and what you avoid. Many people spend years trying to change their circumstances while ignoring the patterns of thinking that created those circumstances in the first place. They focus on results, but rarely examine the mindset producing those results. Imagine planting the same seed repeatedly and expecting a different tree to grow. The expectation would make no sense. Yet something similar happens every day. The same beliefs create the same choices. The same choices create the same behaviors. The same behaviors create the same outcomes. Then frustration appears when nothing changes. The truth is often uncomfortable. A different future usually requires a different way of thinking first. This does not mean positive thinking alone solves every problem. Life is more complex than that. Challenges are real. Obstacles are real. Setbacks are real. But the way you interpret those experiences influences what happens next. Two people can face the same difficulty and move in completely different directions. One sees a permanent defeat. The other sees a temporary challenge. One gives up. The other adapts. The circumstance may be identical. The mindset is not. That difference changes everything. Consider how many opportunities are missed because a person decides failure is certain before even trying. How many goals remain unfinished because doubt becomes stronger than action? How many possibilities disappear because fear is accepted as fact? Thoughts are powerful because they quietly shape behavior, and behavior shapes life. That is why meaningful change rarely begins with circumstances. It begins with perspective. The moment you start questioning limiting beliefs, new possibilities appear. The moment you stop assuming the worst, new options become visible. The moment you believe growth is possible, effort starts making sense. Everything begins there, not with the outcome, not with the reward, not with external validation, with thought. Because the mind is where every future is created before it is ever lived. Every day a conversation is taking place inside your mind, not with other people, with yourself. It happens quietly, almost automatically. A thought appears, then another, and over time those thoughts begin forming a story about who you are, what you can do, what you deserve, what is possible for your future. The problem is that many of these stories were never consciously chosen. Some were inherited. Some were learned from past experiences. Some were created after failures, disappointments, or criticism. Yet they continue influencing decisions years later. Think about this for a moment. If someone constantly tells themselves, "I'm not capable," "I'm always unlucky," "Nothing ever works out for me," how will they approach opportunities? How much effort will they invest? How long will they persist when difficulties appear? The answer becomes obvious, because beliefs influence behavior, and behavior influences results. This is why mindset matters so much. Not because thoughts magically change reality, because thoughts influence actions, and actions influence outcomes. A person who believes improvement is possible tends to keep learning, keep adapting, keep trying. A person convinced that change is impossible often stops before progress even begins. The external difference may seem small at first. The long-term difference can be enormous. Another important truth deserves attention. Your mind listens to what you repeatedly tell it. Repeated thoughts become familiar. Familiar thoughts become beliefs. Beliefs become habits. Habits become results. That process happens quietly, day after day, year after year, which is why being aware of your internal dialogue is so important. Notice the words you use when speaking to yourself. Notice the assumptions you make. Notice the conclusions you reach before evidence even exists. Many limitations begin there, not in reality, in interpretation. The good news is that a story can be rewritten, not overnight, not through wishful thinking, through awareness, through better questions, through new experiences, through consistent action that challenges old assumptions. The moment you begin changing the story inside your mind, you begin changing the direction of your life. Because every future is built upon the thoughts that are repeated today. The mind works like a filter. Every day, thousands of things compete for your attention. Opportunities, problems, possibilities, risks, reasons to move forward, reasons to stay where you are. Yet attention cannot be everywhere at once. It goes somewhere, and wherever it goes repeatedly, influence follows. This is why focus is so powerful. A person who constantly searches for problems will usually find them. A person who constantly searches for reasons to quit will usually discover them. A person who constantly searches for obstacles will rarely run out of obstacles. The same principle works in the opposite direction. Someone focused on solutions begins noticing possibilities. Someone focused on growth begins recognizing opportunities to improve. Someone focused on learning finds lessons even in difficult situations. The world itself has not changed. The focus has, and that changes perception. Imagine walking into a room and looking only for what is wrong. The flaws become obvious. The imperfections stand out. Now imagine entering the same room and looking for what is useful. The experience immediately changes. The environment is identical. The focus is different. Life often works the same way. This does not mean ignoring problems. Problems deserve attention. The difference is where attention remains. There is a huge difference between recognizing a challenge and becoming consumed by it. One creates action. The other creates paralysis. A healthy mindset acknowledges reality while remaining focused on what can be done next. That mindset creates momentum, and momentum changes lives. Another important observation follows. Whatever repeatedly captures your attention begins shaping your emotions. Constant negativity creates more negativity. Constant comparison creates dissatisfaction. Constant fear creates anxiety. The mind absorbs what it repeatedly consumes. That is why protecting your focus is so important. Every article you read, every conversation you engage in, every piece of content you consume, every thought you repeatedly entertain, all of it influences the direction of your thinking. And because thinking influences behavior, those influences eventually affect your future. Success, growth, confidence, resilience, and progress often begin with something surprisingly simple: attention. Because what you focus on today has a powerful way of shaping what becomes possible tomorrow. Every decision starts long before the moment you make it. It begins with the way you see yourself, the way you see the world, the way you interpret possibilities. That is why two people can stand in front of the exact same opportunity and make completely different choices. One sees potential. The other sees risk. One sees a chance to grow. The other sees a chance to fail. The opportunity is identical. The thinking is not. And that difference shapes the outcome. Life is filled with decisions. Some are small, others change everything. The career you pursue, the habits you develop, the relationships you build, the goals you chase, the risks you take, the chances you ignore. Every one of those choices is influenced by mindset. A person who believes growth is possible tends to act differently. They learn faster, recover faster, adapt faster, not because they avoid mistakes, because they expect improvement to come through effort. On the other hand, a mindset dominated by fear often creates hesitation. Hesitation creates delay. Delay creates missed opportunities. And over time, missed opportunities become regrets. This is why thinking deserves attention. Not because it guarantees success, because it influences the decisions that make success possible. Another important truth often goes unnoticed. The quality of your decisions rarely rises above the quality of your thinking. Confused thinking creates confused choices. Impulsive thinking creates impulsive choices. Fear-driven thinking creates fear-driven choices. Clear thinking creates better decisions. And better decisions create better outcomes. This is one reason personal growth always begins internally, before habits improve, before results improve, before circumstances improve. Thought patterns begin changing, perspective begins changing, awareness begins changing, then behavior follows, then results follow. Everything moves in that order. Many people wait for life to improve before changing the way they think. The reality is often the opposite. A different way of thinking becomes the starting point, because every major change in life begins with a decision, and every decision begins with a thought. That is why protecting the quality of your thinking may be one of the most important investments you ever make. A ship crossing the ocean does not need a completely new destination to change its future. A small adjustment in direction is enough. At first, the difference seems insignificant. Days later, the route is different. Weeks later, the distance grows. Months later, the destination changes completely. The mind works in a similar way. Small changes in thinking often create massive changes over time. A new belief, a healthier perspective, a more constructive interpretation. At first, nothing dramatic appears to happen. Life looks the same. The circumstances seem unchanged. Yet beneath the surface, something important is happening. Decisions begin changing. Habits begin changing. Actions begin changing. And eventually results begin changing. This is why transformation rarely happens in a single moment. It happens through accumulation. One thought influences one decision. One decision influences one action. One action influences one habit. One habit influences an entire future. That process is powerful because it is happening whether you notice it or not. Every day your thinking is shaping your direction. The question is whether that direction is taking you where you want to go. Consider how many breakthroughs began with a change in perspective. Someone stopped seeing failure as proof of weakness and started seeing it as feedback. Someone stopped seeing obstacles as barriers and started seeing them as challenges. Someone stopped believing they were stuck and started believing they could improve. Those shifts may sound simple. Their consequences are not, because perspective influences behavior, and behavior creates outcomes. Another encouraging truth deserves attention. You do not need perfect thinking. No one has it. You do not need constant confidence. No one has that either. What matters is progress, a willingness to challenge limiting beliefs, a willingness to learn, a willingness to grow, a willingness to question assumptions that no longer serve you. That is where change begins. Not in perfection, in awareness. The future you create tomorrow is being shaped by the thoughts you accept today. Choose them carefully. Nurture the ones that help you grow. Challenge the ones that hold you back. Because everything you hope to build, confidence, success, resilience, peace, fulfillment, starts in the same place. The way you think. And once your thinking changes, your direction can change with it. Everything begins in the way you think. Before any goal is achieved, before any habit is formed, before any major change takes place, a thought comes first, then a decision, then an action, then a result. That sequence quietly shapes every life. The beliefs you hold influence the choices you make. The choices you make influence the direction you take. And the direction you take determines where you eventually arrive. This is why mindset matters so much. Not because thoughts alone create success, but because thoughts influence behavior. And behavior creates outcomes. A stronger mindset creates better decisions. Better decisions create better habits. Better habits create a better future. The process may seem slow, often it is. But every meaningful transformation begins somewhere. Usually it begins with a new perspective, a new belief, a new way of seeing what is possible. Remember this. You do not have to change your entire life today. You do not have to solve every problem immediately. You do not have to become a completely different person overnight. You only need to begin thinking differently about what comes next. One better thought, one better decision, one better action, repeated consistently. That is how lives change. If this video helped you see the power of mindset in a new way, subscribe to the channel. There's much more ahead about personal growth, discipline, resilience, emotional strength, success, and the habits that shape an extraordinary life. And remember this one final thought. The life you live tomorrow is being built by the thoughts you choose today.